continue.
Take it
Right,
away.
so hi everyone, thanks for joining us. And this is the very first event like that in UOB because it is a Python coding tutorial, but it's not for CS people at all. Well, if you are a CS person, then great, because you're still hopefully going to learn something. But this is generally just for people to know, to learn what coding is about and just get a little bit more accustomed to it, because it's not that difficult as everybody is trying to portray it as. And I think it would be nice for you to know who we are and why this exists. So I'm the outreach officer. I'm Veronica, and I'm the outreach officer at WiSE, so Women in Science and Engineering UOB. And we do a lot of outreach, but we mainly do outreach at schools. This time we had a little bit more of a free time because you can't really go to schools too much. We did do a little bit of outreach with them, but there was also space for something else. And we thought that, well, maybe doing something for UOB students this time, more teaching related, would also be very good. And DSC was also, obviously they do a lot of events, so they were very experienced in the field already. And Rob helped us quite a lot. And so, and maybe better way to put it is we did it together with Rob. So thanks to Rob very much. And you can say something about DSC, because you clearly know more than I do.
Yeah, sure. So no, thank you, Veronica. I mean, we couldn't have done it without WiSE and without you for connecting us with WiSE. So hopefully, again, this is the first of a Python Basics 101 series. So there should be more of these coming in the upcoming weeks. We haven't scheduled any dates yet, but when we know about them, we'll post them on our usual channels, just like you found this one. So yeah, so DSC stands for Developer Student Clubs. It's a Google Developers Initiative, and Google Developer Student Clubs are university-based community groups for students who are basically interested in becoming a developer or learning about developer-related skills, like Python programming, which is probably why you're here today. So students from all undergraduate or graduate courses, doesn't have to be computer science, it doesn't even have to be STEM related. You're all welcome to join. As long as you have an interest in growing as a developer, really, that's all we need. And so by joining DSC, you're growing your knowledge in a peer-to-peer learning environment, and as well as Developer Student Clubs is also involved in building solutions for local businesses and the community. So I'm the lead for Developer Student Clubs. We also have some of the core team, so Valeria and Charles here. And also so that's Charlie. And we also have some of our event volunteers like Ammaar and Jack and Veronica and Andre, and I don't want to miss anyone out, but Daniel as well. So they're all here. So we'll be here to help out in this workshop, as well as some WiSE volunteers. I don't want to try listing out your names because I don't want to miss anyone out. But I'm sure you can introduce yourself as it comes to it. But yeah, feel free to message us and we'll post in the chat anytime on and off Zoom about any questions you have. I'm always free to hit up. You can send me a friend request on Facebook or message me, or on Discord as well. I'm also part of the Computer Science Society, so you can find me there as well. So yeah, to stay up to date with DSC stuff and WiSE stuff, and even CSS stuff if you're interested in it, just feel free to register on the event platform page. I'll put a link in the chat now, as well as just keeping up to date on our Facebook. So yeah, that's really it about DSC.
Yeah, that's a very good point you've made. So in terms of the rules here, if you can call it that way, it is actually reverse rules. So feel free to put anything in the chat, even if it's like caps lock, this doesn't work, that's fine. And there will be people to help here. So, yeah, that's it for the general intro. And we plan on switching between different people so that different people can have experience in helping out and in leading those workshops. So today it's me and Ammaar.
Hello.
So yeah, you know about myself already. So Ammaar, here we go.
Long story short, DSC event volunteer. I talk about DSC, but that's been covered for ages. But second year CS student, I have a bit of experience in Python. I've written a couple of programs in it in my free time. And a lot in machine learning and stuff. But for an intro to Python, general Python, I'm here to help. Same as Rob, hit me on DSC or anything else. Honestly, I'm not as well networked, but I'll help you if gets to me as well as I can find it. I'll try and be on the channels, but yeah, just get into it.
All right, thanks a lot. And I think that I probably should do is share my screen right now. So just give me a thumbs up or whatever if you can see it. Yeah, cool, great. So that's us, and you know all of this already. Yeah, a fun fact about DSC is that if you join, you have to have a photo. And they're all round, so they don't fit in your in many of the communication, but it does fit in the Google Events accounts. So the plan for today in general is first introduce the Python as a language and why is everybody so excited in Python when teaching, because this is a language from which a lot of people start teaching and learning coding. So why? What's the point in here? And we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to introduce what are we going to use. So we'll go to a website together and try to see a website on which we can code. And then we will go on to how to actually code, starting from basic syntax and going on to more advanced stuff like libraries and different functions. And we're also going to finish off with a project, so that when you leave, you have something that you have done all by yourself, with our help, obviously. And yeah, Ammaar, taking on to you.
All right. So as for the next bit, it's just why Python. Long story short, Python's, as it says, it's a readable language. So it's not like you're being thrown into a whole world of numbers and you have no clue what you're reading anymore. It kind of sounds like English, like if this is read, do that, along those lines. And then it says by a high level language, same thing, it's easy to understand. And that's why a lot of people start with it, because you don't want to be so deeply thrown in like a program language like C that you don't know what's happening anymore. It's popular because it's simple, close to English. And the important thing about Python is that it's really easy to use in a lot of different applications. We'll get into the libraries later, but what it effectively means that it's really versatile and simple, which just leads to a really good combination if you want to explore later on. When I say it's simple, this is the best way of explaining it. This is C++, it'd be similar in C and a lot of other languages. And when you see that looks complicated, when you get to here, it looks a bit simpler. And if I just explain this, print just means to output, and array is just whatever you want to output. In this case, it's something we call a data structure. Computer science will be familiar with it. If not, we'll explain it sooner and later on in this module. I said module, this isn't university. So many online lectures. The simplest way I can put this so you'd all understand, if you compare it to walking, Python's a bit like saying walk. And if you go somewhere else to see or something, it's like trying to tell every muscle how to move. And that's what I mean when you say you get further down into code and trying to understand how each layer works. Python lets you just tell it to do something and the computer kind of figures the rest out. That's the good thing about it. Back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, very good analogy with the walking thing. So we're going to use something called web coding environment, because Python, as simple as it is, it requires some kind of program to run. Because if you imagine if you're just writing it in Notepad or something like that, well, you can, nobody prevents you from doing it, but it will not actually work. And nice thing about Python is that it has a lot of support on the internet already. So you can just enter a website, write a Python program, and it works. So this is what we're going to do today. And in order to be able to follow, if you could just open up a new tab, something like that, and go to a website called replit. I'm going to share the link in a second. So this could be, you can just Google it well, you can just search it by Googling replit Python turtle. So let's try to do it actually. Okay. Sorry. So share again. Okay, thank you. So if you go to this website and enter, it depends on whether you're logged in or not. But if you are logged in, you will see a login screen popping up, and you need to log in with your Google account. There are also other methods of logging in, but I assume you all have Google accounts, so that will be the easiest. And if you do it properly, or if you just if you're able to see it, that's what we're going to use today. So we have on the left-hand side, we have just a notepad basically, so a place where you can write out stuff. The white place will be where we will see different drawings later on, and the black is a console which will output text. So if we want any kind of text output, it will be shown in the black panel. And this is really how most coding environments look like. With the only option is that the only difference is that most of them are programs that you download on your computer, but for today it's not really necessary because this will work as well. And you only need the programs that you download on your computer for larger projects and so on. And for today, we're going to keep it simple. So is everybody okay with going to the website? So can you write in the chat if you have any problems? Because maybe we'll leave it at that for a minute.
Just a quick note, I've put the link in the chat, and if you don't get the pop-up selecting to make a new replit, you can just go to the top left and there's a button for it. Just select Python and name it whatever you want, you'll be fine. If you have issues, just put it in chat and we'll have some helpers for you.
Yeah. All right, so Ammaar, do you want to go on?
Okay. Just checking if everyone's set up enough. Anyway, so assuming you can all see or hear me at the same time, once you set it up, there's just a couple of basic beginning things that you should be able to do. It's okay if you don't really understand why we're writing print sometimes or exactly what every part of the code does. We'll go through all of that. This is just to get a taste of what coding is like, because at the end of the day, just telling a computer to do something, and it's nice to see it work once in a while. So first thing I'm doing is I'm writing print. This is once says, I said it earlier, it's what you use to output. And then I'm gonna put a little phrase inside, which is just what I tell it to output. The standard way to start is hello world. I don't know why, it's just every tutorial decides to do it, so I guess we'll follow that too. And that's it. Notice how I put little speech marks here. Don't worry about it too much, but you need those when you're not outputting a variable. Once again, a lot of things, don't worry about it. Variables, just storing something to output later. If you see that, it runs. Just the play button up here. Print hello world. That's the first thing, everyone does it. As long as everyone's okay, I'm just gonna check chat. No one's having issues. No? Okay. So that's outputting. Quickly, if that works, you can get to someone to input their name and then output it. So the way you take input, you have name equals input. Once again, I know it looks scary. It's okay. We like brackets, we like equal symbols, and we like weird names for everything because we decide to call them variables. It'll make sense eventually. You'll be okay. So what I've done in the top line basically is I've set a variable, which is just something that stores any kind of information or data, and I've set it equals input. You'll see what that does in a second. And then print hello, oh, speech marks, plus name. So first thing I've done, you see how it has no output right away this time? That's because of the input thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to input my name, Ammaar, and it says hello, Ammaar. That's it. Really simple. So the input just stored my name or whatever values put in into this variable, just stores information. And then it outputs hello plus my name. That's about it. It's just a little taste, and you don't need to understand every part, like what exactly a variable is, how exactly to output, why there's a plus there. It's okay. We'll get to that in time in the series. Finally. Yeah.
Sorry. Actually, if I can just pop up in for a second, it's not as difficult as it seems. So when it comes to the name equals name equals input part, the first thing you need to ask yourself when programming is, what do you want to do? And usually it's a kind of combination between getting things and outputting things. So this is why we're starting from it. So if you are doing, for instance, if you are a psychologist and you want to manipulate a lot of data about different people from like a huge database, usually what you do in the middle is not very complicated for like biology-based research or stuff like that. Well, that's okay, that was a little bit of an understatement. That might be complicated sometimes. But a lot of fields is just adding things together, subtracting things together, printing things out nicely, just like Excel does, but in a more efficient way. And to do this, we need to have an output, so a way to read whatever data people are using, because after all, most data comes from the real world, if it's not like heavy math. And we also need a way for a human at the very end. So somebody, I don't know, somebody in a school, somebody in a hospital, somebody in a company to see it. And what programs tend to do is, if we want to output things out, and in case of very simple programs, we just print them out, because there's a lot of different places to which you can print them out. You can print them out to a file, you can print them out to, I don't know, an image, you can make it generate a meme, whatever, but it will be a file eventually, or it will be just something written in your console. So this is why output is very important. Now, why is input very important? As I said, most data comes from the real world. And in the first line, we say name equals input, and name is a variable, as Ammaar said. A variable is nothing but a box with data. So in here we name this box name. So we say, hey, Python, this is your piece of memory, and in this piece of memory you will store something called name. And then we just say the user to put something in it. And you will see a lot of it, mainly because if computers didn't have any input and any output, they would be utterly useless, like at all. So it sounds complicated at first, but it's just a matter of putting things into boxes and making sure that humans are able to use it after all.
Yeah, no, that was a good way of putting it, actually. So yeah, nothing to add, Richard. Weronika said that's about right. It's just input, whatever you want to do with it, and then output. Yeah.
Would it be possible if you could make the screen a little bit bigger? I think some people are struggling to read it, or update the text to make the font a little bit bigger. Is it possible?
I can do that if you want. Oh, to make the text a bit bigger.
Yeah, just to make it a bit easier to read.
Control plus, maybe?
Yeah, I'll just zoom in on the page. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. All right. If that's okay, I'll go to the next slide then. We're skipping that one. Here. So another thing you can do with Python and then generally programming languages, it's what they're really good at, basic maths. you might think it's a bit pointless when you have a calculator and stuff, but it does get a lot further and a lot more complicated, and you can automate a lot of things, which is what's really useful. Like Weronika was saying, with databases, you can just go through loads and loads and loads of data, doing even simple addition, subtraction, even applying formulae and functions if you want to do something more in other fields, and continue along those lines. But for now, just basic maths in there. We can set the variables, right? A equals 12. So all I'm telling the computer here is that the variable A, just something that stores data, is equal to 12. So now, for example, if I ask it to print A, what it should do is just tell me 12. It's just showing that A is containing 12. Then if I also said B is equal to 5, just like in that slide there, we now have two variables. A is 12, B is 5. It's just data that's being stored inside that box. The other thing you can do is manipulate these variables and store them as well. Don't get too far with it, but all you can do, if I say print outputting A plus B, so as we can see, A contains 12, B contains 5, should output 17. There. It's not too bad if it's just explained the right way. Veronika's right, it looks complicated, but when you just realize that it's just a way to communicate with the computer, it's not too bad. If you want to now, did I miss some on the previous slide? No. If you want to now, you can try to do these things here. So you can copy this one in first and try it in your own environment. And at the same time, if you're able to do that, write a program that takes two inputs. So just like this, except the input is taken using this here, remember, taking inputs, and output their quotient. Quotient, once again, sounds fancy. It's just this here, it's integer division. For example, if I did A divided by B, so A divided by B is 12 divided by 5. It's going to be decimal number. Quotient just takes the whole number, not the remainder, the divisor. So 12 divided by 5, 2 into 5, that goes to 10, outputs 2. That's a quotient. Not to be condescending, just in case it's forgotten, because I forgot so much of my year 11 and 12 stuff before I came to uni. If you have issues with that, just shoot in chat. Veronika, anything to add?
Yeah, maybe. So when you take a look at the presentation, it actually looks tiny bit different. So it has print str a plus b. I don't know if any of you spotted that. So there is actually two ways to do it. And in Python, especially if any physicists or chemists or people or engineers, people with like engineering coding are watching it, in Python, you need to be careful because some things are done at the back end and you don't see it normally. So in order to be for something to be printed out, it has to be a character basically, because if Python writes something out, it has to be a number, a letter, comma, dot, anything else. And a number and something printed out that looks like a number but actually is a character are essentially two different things to most computers. Now, Python is really smart, and it can convert a lot of data types into one another without us realizing it. So sometimes you need to keep track of your own variables. What do you put where? But usually, Python works for our favor. So even if we kind of forgot what we put in this box, Python will still find a way to print it. If we have a weird a data structure or anything that doesn't look like a single number, but it's more complicated, and we shove it into the print function, Python 99% will understand it. And this is also something that you can remember, that you can put essentially everything into the print function, and don't be afraid to just try out different combinations with this function, because it's really very, very versatile, as Ammaar said.
Yeah, so just to show what she said, what she's saying is that it's the same if I do this here and just help the program understand how I want it to output. Same answer, but it avoids the risk of there being an error, which she's right in.
Yep.
Still, go ahead and try these. Do you think I should try and explain what str and data types are, or leave that till a later lecture?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Do you think I should try and explain a bit more about str and what data types are, or leave that till a later lecture?
I think we will say more about data types, but okay, but you can say a little bit about what is a string of characters. Just don't go into like the whole list of data types.
Oh, no. Long story short, Python hides a lot from us and makes it easier for us. That's why we love it. The downside is sometimes it's thinking something and you don't really know what it's thinking because there's so much hidden behind there. So all I've done here is the output print usually expects everything to be something called a string. Don't worry about it. It's basically just words, characters, sentences. So human language like. All I've done is I've told Python str brackets. So whatever is going to come out of here, even though it's a number, it's going to treat it like it's a word. That doesn't mean anything different. That doesn't mean anything too fancy. It looks the same. It's just to Python and makes it a little bit easier to understand. And that's just a really just a really useful extra way to make sure your program doesn't crash because of something unnecessary. So she's right. It's good practice whenever you're writing print, just to put a little str and brackets around whatever it is you're printing, just to make it so there's not going to be any errors. That's all you have to worry about. It's going to be fine. I think the next one's yours, Weronika. So I'm just going to turn off screen share and you can share the same screen until you want to start yours. Yeah?
Yeah, there is a question that is actually very, very interesting. Yeah, so let's go through it. Let me share my screen. So that's this one. Okay, and that's my replit. Do you see my replit? Okay, so somebody asked in the chat, let's make it full screen this time. Somebody asked in the chat that why this doesn't work. So in here, we have input 1 equals input 2 equals input. So we should take 2 times the input. And then we print out the integer division of both inputs. So seems okay. Let's try it out. So we press run, and it asks us for the first number. So let's say it's 7. And for the second number, so let's say it's 2. And oh my God, type error, unsupported operand type. Yeah, so you will see those from time to time. But errors are very useful because they tell us what's going wrong. So basically, you don't need to worry about the whole text of the error. We will be going through that later as well. But while Python is smart in one way, so as I said, you can print out a number because it's always going to be a string of character that is at the very end. So Python can kind of guess, okay, if it's a number, it probably wants to just output the number, not like, I don't know, something that's 100 as big as this number. So Python is able to guess that we are interested in this number. But if it goes the other way around, Python does not really know how to interpret the data. So it saves everything in a string. So at this point, this is just a string of characters. So this is just like, this could have been random letters to Python's understanding. So to perform an operation, you need to turn the inputs into a number. So the TLDR version is, if you have an input, you always need to turn it into a number if you want a number. And we do it by writing int, which stands for integer. So integers are just normal numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And also like that. And let's try it. So the first was 7, second was 2. Okay, and it's 3. So then Python understands that what we have actually inputted is a number. So if you want to ask for any numbers with an input, you need to use it like that. A very good question. Absolutely, 10 points for you. All right, is there anything else in the chat? Yeah, okay, that's good. So on to the next thing. We know how to do basic maths. Let's right now try to go to something a little bit more exciting. So have you ever wondered how do you program a game, for example? That's a question. If you're programming a game, you can't just tell the computer to do everything from the beginning to the end, because games run differently for different people. And if you perform different actions, the game will be different from your perspective. So if you just write the code line by line like that, it will probably be the same for every person that runs it. So there is clearly something wrong here. And also it will be the same for every kind of route, every choice that you make, which also doesn't make sense. So there has to be some way to divide the program into different, let's say, timelines, or even different scenarios. And there is a way. And it's all based on one very simple English word, which is if. So in programming, we often use something called if statements. And those are statements that enable the program to run in different ways depending on a condition. So just like in English language, like Ammaar said at the very beginning, if, I don't know, if it rains, wear a coat. If it doesn't, then go out in a t-shirt. And this is exactly what you can do in a program as well. So let's consider a program like that. You have your age, and you ask the user for input of the age. And if the age is larger or equal to 18, it will print that you're an adult. Else it will print that you're a minor. So this is a very simple example, but you can test. Let's try to test it out. So you can first try to copy it and see if it really works. And we are touching on something very important here as well. So if you see line 2 and line 3, they are in a different, let's say, distance from left-hand side. And this is because Python is a white space sensitive language. So you need to use the tabulation that's exactly the same as we do. So print has to be moved away from the if statement. And if there are people who are more proficient in coding and have already written things like that, you can try to write a program that will allow the user to input a number and write odd if the number is odd and even if the number is even. So that would be another challenge for you. So if okay, so this will be the beginning. And this is a number, so remember to add the integer as we've just discussed, thanks to this nice question. And then we need to use the if statement to consider 2 scenarios. First one, if the number is even, and second one, if the number is odd. And the most difficult part of it is probably checking if the number is even or if the number is odd. So if anybody has an idea how to check whether a number is even or whether a number is odd, you can write it in the chat. But I can assure you that the answer is hidden somewhere here. Yeah, it's 2n or 2n plus 1, that's correct. But you would, yeah, so there was, yeah, there is basically a correct answer in the chat already. So normally in maths, we would check whether it's 2n or 2n plus 1. But the problem with that is that Python doesn't know what n is. So you would need to define the set of natural numbers for Python, which wouldn't end up being very easy. Yeah. So we would need to use the modulo sign. So if number %sign, this is the remainder from division, equals 0, then print even, and else print what? And yeah, this is how you do it. Okay. So, oh, something's wrong with this. So, Ammaar, do you want to go on for that?
Yeah, sure. So, leaving that aspect of coding there, Python's more than that. Like I said, there are libraries, and that's where the beauty of Python really comes in, because you can do it for so many more things. We'll be explaining it with Turtle, which is just another pre-installed Python library, so you'll already have it on the online website. You can use it to create pictures or move and draw different diagrams, like you'll see with Weronika in a minute. But more than that, the libraries in Python allow it to do so many things, from creating images to processing data to machine learning to artificial intelligence, and I'm sure so many things that I can't even fathom. So that's the great thing when it comes to other disciplines like biology and whichever course you're doing. You can almost always find some use for Python if you're looking for programming to use somewhere. Anyway, on to Weronika, as she'll be showing you how to use Turtle.
All right. Yeah. Just a second. All right. Yeah. All right. So let's comment it out, which means it won't be visible. It won't be run. All right. So, yeah, as we said, Python has a lot of different libraries installed, and normally, also a good question to ask is, why is it a separate is it a separate thing? So if Python has so many wonderful functions, why don't we just put them all in Python? Like, why are they called libraries even? And the problem is that if we put a program, so if we put something that understands Python with all the libraries for Python that are available, probably none of your laptops would be able to run it. So people separate that into separate like packages of code, and you import it to your program only if you need it. And we're going to try to import a library with a beautiful name, Turtle. And this means that this is a library that will enable us to draw things. So our project today will be a little bit connected to drawing. Yeah, so if we write import turtle, we tell the program that we will be using things from this library, and it saves a part of different functions that are available to it. Okay, and now we have lots of things. Okay, somebody said it feels so weird not to end lines with a semicolon. I know that feeling, switching from C to Python. Okay, so let's try what kind of functions are there. So in Python Turtle, we can, for instance, write forward and the distance, how much we want to go. Turtle.forward. And it will draw a line. So if we don't import the Turtle library, if we try to run this program, it will be an error. Python doesn't understand at all. But if we do it, we can draw. And the most important commands that you can use is forward and also turtle dot backward. So this is going back and forth. You can also turn around, so you can go to the right 90 degrees. So you can select a right angle. You can also have negative angles to go counterclockwise. And you can also have turtle dot left. Another thing you can do, so let's try to see what it does if we change the order a little bit. See, so you go and it draws stuff. And this looks like it's a simple thing, but people are actually able to write games using Python Turtle. So this is something that you already start using for different purposes than just trying out what Python is. And let's try to draw a simple thing. So let's try to draw a rectangle using that one. So if you want it to draw a rectangle, you should go forward and then you go left and then you go forward and then you go left and so on. So if you want it to do it, you should probably just copy and paste those two lines 4 times and maybe change the distance here and here. Oh, yeah, 500 is not the right thing, 50. And that's it. So the nice thing about that is you don't really need to specify how are you going to write it, how are you going to draw it. So there is nothing related to computer graphics here. You just specify the geometrical properties and Python draws it for you. And as another thing, you can also add the color. So you can have turtle color red. Sorry for the American spelling, that's how it is. And in the apostrophes, so quotation marks, you can select a color. So if I'm so if I'm changing the color, if I'm using the color function, the color of the turtle will become red. There is also a way to check to change the line, which we're going to try by putting it here. Yeah. So it depends when do you change it. If you first change it to red, then your rectangle will be red. And noting everything that we have done, we can go to the first project because that's actually the fun part. And can you all see my presentation still?
Yep.
Yeah, cool, great. Yeah, so the highlight is we're going to now combine everything that we've learned together, and we're going to write a program that gives the user the option to pick between 3 different shapes. It's easiest to do with a triangle, a square, and a circle. And write a program that asks for the input, and when the user writes circle, it draws a circle. If it writes triangle or just T, it draws a triangle, and if the user says square, we draw a square. So that would be the task. And does anybody have any idea how to start this? Ammaar, do you want to maybe shed a light on that?
Yeah, sure. So it's all based on if statements again. So it's just everything the slides put together. First thing you're doing is you're taking input, you're putting it in a variable, and then you have a bunch of if statements. So if triangle, just as the first example, and then inside of that you would put, like she's done for square, but just instead for triangle with those angles, how to draw a triangle in there. If you have any questions on the specifics, put it on chat, but the general idea is just get the input, put it in an if, and if triangle, and then put everything for drawing triangles in that if statement, else if square, else if circle, or just else. That okay with everyone? Oh, sorry, Veronica, yeah?
And for a circle, there is a separate function that's just called turtle.circle. So just wanted to pop that up, that you don't need to reinvent what a circle is. So let me actually note everything. So first is get input. Secondly would be create 3 if statements. And 3, draw a shape inside the if. If anybody has any idea on how to improve it, or maybe wants to go on and do a total spin-off of the project, that's fine as well. At the end, you'll have the time to show off if you did something that that works or that you like. And remember that if you stumble into any difficulties, you can just drop it in chat. Very good question again. Is there an else if statement? Yes, it's called elif. Yeah, so this was the lesson today was explicitly designed so that we don't need to use elif statements if somebody was not familiar with them. But if you want, we can do a little bit of a demo with an if statement. So let's say a equals, I don't know, 7 again. And let's say we have 3 cases. We want to check if it's between 0 and 2, 2 and 9, and 9 and more. And if we just use if statements, so if a is smaller than 2, smaller or equal to 2, then print small. If a is larger than 2 and a is smaller and equal to 7 or 9, print mid. If a is larger than 9, print large. And it will work, but it looks somehow complicated. Like if we have a long, let's say if we have different numbers in different places and we need to write multiple conditions for everything, that will turn into quite a long statement. So sometimes you can also do an else if statement, and I'm just going to demonstrate what the difference is. So print big. Okay, let's try to run it. So again. Okay. So if we try to run this thing, okay, it will print out something, and then it will print out mid. So 7 is in the middle, and that's correct. We can put that in a comment for a second. So additionally, because it's too complicated, you can do it in a totally different way. You can say, okay, first check the first thing. So that's an if statement. Now we do an elif. That means if the first one is not true, then go to the next one. So it doesn't even check for it if the first one is true. If the first one is true, then it's all finished. And then we can do it like that. Elif a is smaller than or equal to 9, and else. So it's if, else, else. And as you can see, the condition is now very, very simple. And
it's because you got a less than or equal to.
Yeah. Else equal to, yeah, just else. Yeah, that's correct. So else. Yeah, and right now the condition is pretty much simpler. So that's also something you can do. Oh, and there is a nice diagram in the chat. So Rob has put up something. Oh, yeah. That's how an elif works. Okay. Anybody else having questions about? Okay, can we see that elif optimizes our program a bit? Yes, that's absolutely true. That's the case. So if we have like an elif, if we have an if statement that consists of like 20 different ifs, and the first one is true, and all of the other conditions are mutually exclusive, then they are still getting checked because Python doesn't know Python needs to check. So if we're using an elif statement, especially if we have very complicated cases, it is more efficient and better to do than an if. Is anybody Did anybody succeed in completing the program or just doing a tiny bit of it? Maybe just like the input part. Or maybe is when, did anybody get an error? If somebody got an error, then you can communicate it in the chat because it's usually interesting. Ammaar, did you have any tips regarding if statements? So that, Ammaar, you're on mute.
Thank you. Yep, I would have talked for a good minute. Yeah, you covered most of it, but just the good thing about if statements, else ifs in particular is, as Matt said, efficiency. It's better than checking if something's greater than 2 and then greater than 9 and then greater than 13, when you can just check greater than 13 first, and if not, then check below. Hello, my brother is now in the room. No, bye.
Hi, Ammaar, Spatter.
They're saying hello. 50.
Hello, hello.
Meet the family. Welcome to lockdown.
Yeah, if any of you wants to bring your cats or something, mine is
Oh, I would
somewhere.
love to see some dogs. If any of you have dogs, please turn your videos on. Sorry, lecture, yes. But yeah, that's the best thing about if statements. They just maximize efficiency when you use them right. But if you do it like in the diagram, it just saves some time. That's the best thing about them. Someone's got an error? A equals string improve, A equals triangle, then I get a syntax error. If A equals triangle. Oh, okay, it's been corrected.
Yeah, so yeah, you've answered that.
Yeah. Just
So
like
if you,
Weronika said in chat. No,
if
sorry,
you want,
continue.
sorry, if you want to check if something is equal to, you need to use double equality signs. So if something equals something else. Yeah, and Rob has got more involved answer of why that is actually. So basically, if A equals 7 will not work, but if we write if A equals 7, it will work. So the first one is wrong, and the second one is good. Yeah. Oh yeah, and don't forget to put the colons at the end of the line. You don't need the semicolons at the end of each line, but you still need to have double, so just a colon. And if somebody is feeling like they want to be challenged, you can try to enable the user to input their name and print out their name in Turtle. This will probably take you a little bit longer because you would need to draw all the alphabet, but you can try first doing it only on 3 different letters and try to see if you can write out different letters in Python Turtle. Yes, you can have multiple lines of statements after the colon. but remember they all need to be at the same level of indentation. So if you're doing this will work, but this will not. So it has to be aligned. And in case somebody forgot the commands. Okay.
Do you know where we're at with sort of timing?
Yeah, I think it depends on the people. I guess we can start just taking general questions in a second. If you're able to do the poll, like have you managed to get anything, that would be fab.
If I guess if you could use the reactions thing in Zoom, I don't know, I don't use reactions in Zoom too much, but if anyone's got like something working with, they're happy with it, I guess like show a clap or a thumbs up or something on the reactions at the bottom of Zoom, and we'll see if that works.
That's actually a very good idea. Yeah, there's also this raise hand thing, so you can also raise hands if you're happy with the project, or if
that's what I was looking for. So
okay, we see a first hand up. Right, does anybody have any other questions about the exercise, or if anybody, I'd raise both hands if I could. Okay, so if anybody is like stuck on a particular part of it, we can also help out. So I guess it's, if it's okay, I'm going to start typing out a possible solution of it, I guess. So the first thing would be to put the input, and then we would have 3 if statements. So the first one would be if the shape is equal to a triangle. Then we would draw a triangle. And in Turtle, we would do that by just drawing 3 lines. So an example of it would be going forward and then going left. 120 degrees, gotta go, but thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. If somebody needs to go right now, thanks a lot for coming, and feel free to leave, especially if you don't have any questions. Thanks a lot.
If people are thinking of staying, do you know how long it will be approximately?
Yeah, I think, well, it depends. I think we will close at 15 anyway. So so that would be like the lesser. So
sweet. So if anyone wants to stay around, it won't be too long.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if it's a circle, then we just create a circle. And if it's not a circle, then, well, if it's a square, then you just need to draw a square. And this is everything you need, even though we do kind of complicated things here. So even though we draw things on the screen, even if we're communicating with the user and so on. See you next time. Yeah, that wasn't like an official apply for everybody. That was like for a couple of people, sorry. Yeah, so this is how it should look like. If your code looks like that, I'm just going to go with 3 dots here. If your code looks like that, you're probably right, and it's probably working for you. So that it will be it for the actual workshop. Ammaar, do you have anything to add that you would like to share?
Just thank you all for coming. Check out the next couple ones for Python and in general DSC. You can see on the page. I'm sure Rob will cover all of that. And thanks to WiSE as well for supporting all of this. I'll hand it over to Rob in case he has anything to say about DSC.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have anything to say necessarily right now, other than thanks everyone seriously for coming. Really hope you learned something and you picked up something from it, useful from it. So regarding workshops going forward, I know we're already sort of immediately after this is done, we'll be planning the next Python workshop. And the idea is for that to happen fortnightly, so every 2 weeks, but it might change, but the idea is for that to remain fortnightly. But we'll release all the information. I can share the link to the event platform again. So you can register here, and when you register, you'll be sent emails. Sorry if the form is a little bit like verbose, if there's quite a bit to fill in when you're doing things, but you should only have to sign up once, and then registering for events in future should be really easy, like a click of a button. So if you sign up once, you'll get emails about all the future events, even if they're not Python workshops. So if you're interested in coming to a more CSE thing, so I know we're planning a more advanced Python workshop as well, alongside this workshop series, the Space 6 workshop series. So if you get into Python, you can look forward to that as well. But yeah, that's everything.
Absolutely.
DSC.
And on the other hand, if you if you enjoyed this workshop, but you definitely feel like this is your level, and going to a workshop for CS people would not be the best idea to keep up your enthusiasm. We do have a lot of events with WiSE as well. So we do have our WiSE Inspire event, which will be mainly talks with local successful people from STEM, usually it's women from academia. So it's like lecturers or different people working in different industries, very interesting stuff. And we will also have an Equal in STEM conference. So we are planning on organizing it as every year, but this year it will be online. So if you are looking more into the networking side of it, or education related or academia related in general, you can take a look at WiSE's Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. We're also setting up a LinkedIn account right now. And can we get a link or date for the CS Python workshops? I don't think that's finalized yet, but
yeah, so it's not finalized yet, but everything will be posted on the event platform. So if you register for the event platform, you'll get an email as soon as they're posted. But if you want to follow any social medias, you can follow the Computer Science Society Facebook page as well, or join that, and you'll see your posts about DSC there. So yeah,
definitely. And also for this workshop, so this was like a first introduction, but the aim afterwards is that we're going to get more into like data structures related things. So we're going to save more things, we're going to analyze more things, and go into things like, if somebody is familiar with, we'll go to like matplotlib, so plotting things, and scipy or numpy, which is for manipulating more numbers and more data and so on. And the goal is basically for you to be able to look for information and understand a little bit more what's going on in all of these disciplines that maybe use programming in Python, but are not necessarily strict CS. So for every EPS student, you probably need computing as well. Biologists also have some computer labs, as far as I'm concerned. If you do anything related to economy, you will probably need to produce some charts at some point. So as long as right now it was very much, drawing related and fun related, we will also be showing things that are more useful and even CVable, let's say. Okay.
All right then.
All right. Okay. That's more or less it then. Yeah, thanks are starting up to pop up in the Zoom chat. So again, if anybody has any particular questions about like Python and so on, volunteers all have their real names probably in here, so they'll be able to answer any question. Do you do anything related to machine learning? At the very end, the plan is yes. So like very simple ones, but just to try out a simple machine learning library. So yeah, it will go more towards like data stuff and hopefully a simple machine learning example, because we all know that artificial intelligence is fun, right? So so yeah, that's the plan. And obviously maybe there will be more advanced workshops on that from CSS and DSC.
Yeah, if you have any specific suggestions, anyone, also feel free to message me anywhere. You can find me on anything just by looking up my name.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Same for us. Yeah, same for me. It's probably the only account with I would pop up my profile link or somewhere, but I guess if you remember it's Weronika with a W, it will pop up as the first one. So yeah.
So I'll end the recording now. If that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.